The Strategic Homeland Division, referred to as the Division, is a classified unit of highly trained, self-supported tactical agents who live unobtrusively among us. The main objective of the Division is to ensure the continuity of government in case of a catastrophic emergency. Released in waves, Division agents are activated when all other forms of public protection have failed. They are the last line of defense. But what brought about the creation of the Division in the first place? The Division story has actually been largely based around real-world organisations and events. The first of these can be dated back to 2001, Operation Dark Winter. Operation Dark Winter was the codename for a bioterrorist attack simulation conducted in June 2001. It was designed to carry out a mock version of a covert and widespread smallpox attack on the United States. Sound familiar? Dark Winter was focused on evaluating the inadequacies of a national emergency response during the use of the biological weapon against the American population. The exercise was solely intended to establish preventative measures and response strategies by increasing governmental and public awareness of the magnitude and potential of such a threat. The simulated scenario involved an initial smallpox attack on Oklahoma City, with additional smallpox attacks on Georgia and Pennsylvania. The simulation was then designed to spiral out of control. This would create a situation in which the National Security Council would struggle to determine both the origin of the attack as well as deal with the containment of the virus. By not being able to keep pace with the rate at which the disease was able to spread, a new issue emerges in which massive civilian casualties would overwhelm America's emergency response capabilities. The disastrous contingencies that would result in a massive loss of civilian life were used to exploit the weaknesses of the US healthcare infrastructure and its inability to handle such a threat. The contingencies were also meant to address the widespread panic that would emerge, which would result in mass social breakdown and mob violence. Dark Winter outlined several key findings. On top of the possibility of massive civilian casualties, breakdowns in essential institutions resulted in the loss of confidence in government, in turn leading to civil disorder and a violation of the democratic processes by authorities attempting to restore order. Shortages of vaccines and other drugs affected the response available to contain the epidemic, as well as the ability of political leaders to offer reassurance to the public. This led to great public anxiety, and it had a significant effect on the decisions taken by the political leadership. Due to the institutionally limited surge capacity of the American healthcare system, hospitals quickly would have been overwhelmed and rendered effectively inoperable by the sudden and continued influx of new cases. This was only made worse by patients with common illnesses who feared they might have smallpox, and people who were otherwise healthy but concerned about their possible exposure. The challenges of making a correct diagnosis and rationing the limited resources combined with shortages of healthcare staff, who were themselves worried about becoming infected, imposed a huge burden on the healthcare system. Also, the ability to reassure and educate the general public in this potential crisis failed on a surprising level. Strategies differed on the best path to maintain order if such an attack occurred. If Operation Dark Winter had been an actual attack, the US government was woefully unprepared. The outcome of Operation Dark Winter led the Bush administration to pass the National Security and Homeland Security Presidential Directive, otherwise known as Directive 51. Directive 51's purpose is to maintain continuity of government in the event of catastrophic emergency, defined as any incident, regardless of location, that results in extraordinary levels of mass casualties, damage, or disruption severely affecting the US population, infrastructure, environment, economy, or government functions. The directive contains annexes so classified, even members of Congress on the Homeland Security Committee are denied access to them. It grants the President draconian powers including the suspension of all elections, the complete subordination of federal and local government departments to the executive branch, and the extension of military command into civilian life. In-game, it speculated that part of the continuity of government plans could include the creation of secret autonomous military cells, with no rules of engagement, dispersed throughout society going about their normal lives, waiting to be activated by the outbreak of an emergency like a pandemic. Again, this speculation comes from real-world events like NATO's stay-behind covert cells that were established across Europe by M16 during the Second World War to prepare for the possibility of an imminent Soviet attack. Established as sleeper cells that would quickly spring into action if the USSR decided to force its way into Europe during the Cold War. They were also so secret that even national governments knew nothing about their existence. National Security Presidential Directive 51, or Directive 51 for short, was quietly posted on the White House website on May 9, 2007. This was not the first secretive directive that a President of the United States has signed, but it was the first to have had a small portion of it made available to the public. Portions that were made public refer to a separation of powers of each of the branches of government, making each of the branches possible of maintaining government without coordinating with the other branches to uphold the framework of the Constitution. Could a story like the Division actually occur in real life? It's actually less unbelievable than you may think. But we need to remember that this is a story based on simulations. It's certainly not a prediction. However, there are a few things to be taken away from this. Not necessarily from a bioterrorism point of view, but through the way that we as a society function, and how we would react if a large-scale disaster was to strike. But this is probably a topic better suited to a different video. After hearing this and all of the historical and real-world events that have brought the Division story to life, you can't help but think, is it possible that there are real-world Division-type sleeper agents around us? And with this in mind, the big question is, who do I have to serenade to get some of that badass shade tech? Thanks again to my Patreons for being able to help me continue to produce these types of videos, particularly Mr. Devereaux. If you're wanting to become one of the fabulous few, check out my Patreon page. Also, we have an amazing group of people in the Discord community helping each other out lately, including a few streamers. I try to jump in with them from time to time, but if you're wanting any help with commendations or finishing some of those shields, check it out. They're a crazy bunch, but super friendly. It's definitely become my go-to place to chat about games lately. I'll have a link to both of these in the description. Thanks for checking out the video, and if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see from me in the future, let me know in the comments. Cheers!